My 5 favorite Data scenes in Star Trek movies, ranked. Lieutenant Commander Data, the beloved android officer from Star Trek The Next Generation, made an indelible mark not just on the series, but on the movie franchise that followed. Played with precision and pathos by Brent Spiner, Data was always more than just the ship's second officer, he was the heart of the Enterprise. Whether struggling to become more human, navigating moral quandaries, or sacrificing for his crew, Data's presence elevated every Star Trek film he appeared in. Here are my 5 favorite Data moments in the movies, ranked not just by spectacle or plot relevance, but by emotional impact and what they tell us about the android who wanted to be more than his programming. 5. Lock and Load. Star Trek First Contact 1996. One of the most action-packed and unexpectedly funny moments involving Data comes early in Star Trek First Contact. As the Borg threaten to overrun the Enterprise, Data, Captain Picard, and Worf head to the deflector dish to stop the Borg from calling reinforcements. In the thick of battle, Data delivers the line, "Lock and load," a surprisingly colloquial and human phrase from someone who rarely uses contractions. It's a small moment, but it marks one of the many times First Contact toys with the idea that Data is evolving emotionally. The entire film builds on this premise, especially once he is captured by the Borg Queen, but this early scene shows that the android is already experimenting with human expressions and behavior. Brent Spiner delivers the line with deadpan flair, making it both amusing and revealing. It's a clear signal that Data isn't just processing commands anymore, he's actively choosing how to express himself, sometimes in unexpected ways. 4. I am fully functional. Star Trek First Contact 1996. Yes, First Contact earns 2 spots on this list, and for good reason. Data's dynamic with the Borg Queen is central to the movie, and nowhere is it more provocative and perplexing than in the scene where she tempts him with the allure of flesh. The Queen grafts organic skin onto his mechanical frame, and for the first time, Data experiences physical sensation. This culminates in her asking whether he is fully functional, a callback to The Next Generation's famously cheeky reference in the episode The Naked Now. Here, however, the scene carries a darker edge. The sexual undertone is less playful and more manipulative, part of the Borg Queen's strategy to seduce him into joining her. Data's internal struggle between his ethical programming and his desire to experience humanity takes center stage here. For a few moments, the audience genuinely wonders if he will betray Picard and the crew. This scene is equal parts erotic, philosophical, and tragic, and Spiner plays it with unnerving subtlety. That tension and the thematic depth of Data's temptation cements this moment as one of his most unforgettable. 3. Goodbye. Star Trek Nemesis 2002. No list of Data's best scenes would be complete without addressing his death in Star Trek Nemesis. As he beams Picard to safety and sacrifices himself to destroy Shinzen's ship, Data finally embraces the most human act possible, giving his life for others. His final word is simple: goodbye. It's a stark, understated line that carries enormous weight because it contrasts with the chaos around him and the complexity of his journey. For years, Data longed to understand what it meant to be human. In this final act, he demonstrates a quality that many would argue defines our species: selflessness. The scene is controversial among fans. Some felt it was a fitting end for the character, others felt it was unearned or undercooked. Regardless of the debate, the emotional resonance is powerful. Watching Picard's reaction afterward, stunned, hollow, is almost more painful than the death itself. Nemesis may not be the strongest entry in the Star Trek film canon, but this moment is a rare triumph in a film otherwise filled with missed opportunities. It brings Data's arc full circle in the most heartbreaking way. 2. I cannot grieve because I am not capable of grief. Star Trek Generations 1994. Star Trek Generations is often remembered for the passing of the torch from Kirk to Picard, but Data's subplot quietly offers one of the most profound explorations of grief, emotion, and identity in all of Star Trek. Early in the film, he installs his long-feared emotion chip, a piece of technology that finally allows him to feel. When his pet cat Spot disappears during the ship's crash sequence, Data is overwhelmed, not with the grief he expects, but with confusion. "I cannot grieve because I am not capable of grief," he says with crushing honesty. It's a painful moment because it shows Data finally reaching for an emotion that millions take for granted and coming up empty. What makes this scene so effective is that Brent Spiner plays it without theatrics. He isn't wailing or shouting. Instead, he's quietly devastated by the realization that emotions aren't simple upgrades. They're messy, unpredictable, and often elusive. This scene is also emblematic of Generation's thematic ambition. Both Picard and Data deal with loss, but from radically different perspectives. Picard mourns the death of his brother and nephew, while Data confronts the cruel irony of getting what he always wanted, only to find it doesn't behave as expected. #1 I Get It. Star Trek, Generations 1994. No other Data moment in the films captures both the promise and peril of his journey quite like this one. After struggling throughout Generations with his new emotion chip, often failing to control or even understand his feelings, Data finally achieves a breakthrough. In a pivotal moment, as he and Picard work to stop Saran, he begins to laugh, genuinely laugh, at a joke Geordi had told him earlier in the film. "I get it," he exclaims, eyes wide with revelation. "I get the joke." It's a moment of triumph, not because Data understands humor intellectually, which he always did, but because he feels it. For a character built on the idea that emotions were just out of reach, this is a monumental leap. The joy on his face isn't synthetic, it's real, and that makes it powerful. This scene tops the list because it perfectly encapsulates Data's long arc. The android who began his journey asking what a contraction was is now experiencing joy, laughter, and connection on a deeply human level. The emotion chip doesn't make him perfect, it makes him messy, uncertain, and wonderfully complex. But in this moment, he finds something he's been chasing for years: belonging. Honorable mentions. Resistance is futile. First Contact. Data briefly impersonating a Borg drone during his infiltration is both chilling and clever. The Toast in Nemesis. Data's attempt to give a wedding speech at Riker and Troy's ceremony is awkwardly funny and weirdly touching. Data's singing in Insurrection. Not everyone loves Insurrection, but watching Data and Picard sing Gilbert and Sullivan as a distraction is vintage Star Trek whimsy. Final thoughts. Data's presence in the Star Trek movies brought a philosophical edge, a comedic spark, and an emotional core that few characters could match. Across Generations, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis, he evolved from a mechanical outsider to a beloved member of the crew who finally found a sense of humanity at great cost. In many ways, Data was Star Trek's best expression of the franchise's core theme, the search for what it means to be human. Not through warp drives or alien diplomacy, but through the quiet, determined efforts of one android who wanted to understand laughter, love, grief, and sacrifice. And in the end, he did. Characters could match. Across Generations, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis, he evolved from a mechanical outsider to a beloved member of the crew who finally found a sense of humanity at great cost. In many ways, Data was Star Trek's best expression of the franchise's core theme,